Over the last 20 years or so, I've had endless emails, phone calls, texts about people who are having challenges with their horses. And I was mentioning this to a friend of mine, and she kind of offhandedly suggested, why don't you do a Dear Sam series? And so I'm going to try this out. We'll see what happens. Tell me your thoughts. I'd love to hear them below. But today I thought I would share. I printed out just some of the single topics that people have written to me about that they're either feeling stressed or fearful or concerned or at a loss or unsure of how to deal with things that are going on with their horses. So here are just a few of the things that I have been asked to help with over the last 20 years, as I said. And I've answered some of these in posts. I've answered some of these in my Ask the Trainer series. But I thought for your entertainment, you might enjoy and possibly could relate to a few of these things that people have written to me about that are all over the world and feeling a bit stressed and concerned with their horses. So under the training category, one of the biggest topics is aggressive behavior. The next one is aggressive and defensive behavior. The next one is my horse is difficult to catch, how to catch my horse. On my blog, I think I have like 10,000 hits for my how to catch a horse posts that I have written on there under like the search category. So many people are being challenged by just the simple act of trying to catch their horse without treats, without bribery, without those other things. My horse has a bad attitude at feeding time. My horse is herd bound. I can't leave the pasture or I can't leave the property, and my horse has stress. Different breed temperaments. Is there really such a thing? What about clipping? How do I get my horse used to the clippers? The big one is the big keyword desensitizing. This word has been thrown around all over in many different ways, and I still don't think many people actually understand the difference in creating a mentally available horse who is curious about something new and different versus shutting down a horse's brain to not react to something that was initially scary. And desensitizing is a big one for me, so you might follow later to hear more of my thoughts on that. Exercise versus turnout. So for a lot of people who are keeping their horses installed or smaller spaces and wanting to know the difference mentally, emotionally, physically, how it affects their horse. Focusing issues. My horse has a hard time focusing, just so you know, many riders and people have a hard time focusing too. Groundwork problems, trying to do groundwork and seems like I'm repeating and my horse isn't getting it, or my horse is getting it and 2 weeks later my horse isn't getting it. Groundwork is another big misconception of how people are unintentionally creating patterns and routines, thinking that their horse is understanding, not realizing that their horse is complying, and then waiting until the human goes away for the session to be over. So groundwork is another big misunderstanding where people aren't connecting the groundwork to the riding. Just so you know, I'm having an upcoming webinar on this topic. It's a big one. Let's see, loud noise phobia. So here where I winter in the desert, we are actually near a military base and we have F-18s flying overhead and all these fighter jets and crazy loud noise. So it's actually quite amazing how much horses can adapt to noise. But one of the big things in the beginning is like, how do we get horses used to noise? Negative attitude, bad attitude, aggressive attitude. Attitude seems to be a big one. One of the biggest things that I often find with horses that seem to really have an emotional roller coaster is usually there is some sort of health issue or pain-related issues that are occurring. Panicked horse. My horse can't handle new scenarios and he panics. I have a pushy gelding. Help, how do I re-educate my horse? He's aggressive. Spooked, why does it always feel like my horse is scared of anything new and different? How do I start a young horse? Very good question, because that influences the entire rest of that horse's interaction with humans and how he perceives the experience. Thought process. How do I help my horse to think through scenarios? Trust. My horse doesn't want me to touch him. I've never done anything bad. What can I do? Trust. I have a new horse. How do I build trust in the new horse? Okay, so next topic, let's talk about vices. My horse is antisocial with other horses, or my horse has a bad attitude with other horses. This is a big one. Many people assume horses are herd animals and they'll be fine no matter what herd that they go into. Not true. Excessive and excitable horse, so meaning the horse who's overly, we'll call reactive. Just so you know, the big dramatic behavior is usually a sign of defensiveness and insecurity in the horse. It's not that the horse is so confident in that he's taking over the scenario. Head shy horse, I can't put the halter on, I can't put the bridle on, I can't, what is this, clean the horse's ears. This is a big one. Again, this is usually a symptom. This is usually not the issue. So it's a reflection of how the horse feels about physical pressure, meaning you touching the horse, and then you go into somewhere where the horse is typically already a bit concerned, such as his head, and then you're trying to apply equipment to it, and it all falls apart. Horse raising up his front legs. This is not a good thing. This is something that happens a lot. This is something where a horse will threaten if he's been pressured continuously or contained and the only place he has to go is up. I see this a lot. People often miss the initial signs of the horse starting to erupt, we'll call it, and get aggressive with those front legs and the initial stomping and you know, in the beginning they may even think that it's kind of cute or funny, not realizing where it can lead to and how dangerous it can become. Round pen resistance. This is a big one, going back to that whole desensitizing the horse or the groundwork and creating patterns. Many people wind up creating a space where the round pen is a defensive place for the horse rather than a learning tool. Is it really about the shape of being in a round pen? No, it isn't. It is about creating a safe place to have a conversation where your horse learns to become mentally available and he can physically become soft and reasonable in his behaviors. It is not about training, it is not about obedience, and it certainly is not about patterns. When my horse is tied, he paws and he strikes. My horse pulls back anytime there's pressure when he's tied. My horse rears. When my horse is unhappy, he kicks at me and other horses. How come when I put my horse in the stall, he is constantly banging or biting the walls? Let's see. My horse seems to hold his breath and he doesn't breathe consistently. How come when I ask my horse to halt, he's constantly fidgeting? Then there's physical issues as far as addressing the topics of founder. Most horses and their diet in which humans are offering the horse are usually inappropriate for the type of horse, for his work, for his age. So many people don't understand the level of processed feed that we are feeding the horse and how it affects them and how sensitive they are. This is a big one. Horses with fractured body parts, not a good thing. How do we rehabilitate and help them physically mend, and also look at what caused or what contributed to potentially the dangerous behavior that caused the fractured hock to happen. My horse falls down. This is another big one. Many horses have physical and pain issues, whether it's structurally in their body as a result of maybe something that happened in the pasture, whether it's ill-fitting tack, or whether it's incorrect riding. There's so many horses that trip, that stumble, that fall down because mentally and physically they're in two separate places, and there's a lot of contributors to that. This is one I get all the time. And the less mentally present, the more stumbling and fumbling the horse is if there aren't pain issues. And then often there's accidents that seem to happen, and somehow riders just keep going, hoping that the horse doesn't trip rather than realizing that they can be addressing the root cause and not just the symptom, which is the falling down, if there isn't pain and actual physical issues. Let's see, riding aids. This is a big one. How do I steer a school horse? He seems super opinionated. Help, I can't get my horse to back up. Help, I was in a new place and my horse started bolting. How do I get my horse to cross the bridge on the new trail ride? How come my horse bucks after he lands from the jump? Cantering. How do I ask my horse to canter? Why is my horse cross-firing when I ask him to canter? This means his front end is cantering on one lead and his rear end is cantering on another lead. Flying lead changes. Please help. How do I get my horse to do this? This is a big one. Most people scare their horse into sort of stumbling and tripping and accidentally picking up the new lead, as opposed to having all the separate pieces of being able to influence first the horse's mind and thought and direction, second the softness and quality of his movement, and third being able to very specifically ask for changes in where they're asking his body to move, the energy in which they're asking his body to move, so that his mind can think through and learn when the flying lead change is being asked. Instead, most people just sort of chase the horse from one direction into a new direction. Horse is imbalanced and then he kind of stumbles into the new lead. That is not how you ask for a flying lead change. Green broke. What is the definition of that? Most horses in the world that I meet, despite their age, are green broke, meaning they have many holes in their education, and hence why I'm getting the calls of all these other problems. What kind of horse is suitable for a novice rider? Help, novice horse, novice rider. This is always an interesting combination, and there are many success stories, but there are also many stories of heartache and tears and fears and all of this unnecessary drama and baggage that happens if there is an inexperienced horse, an inexperienced rider, and they don't have supportive guidance from an experienced quality horse person. Often, unfortunately, many good intentioned horse friends tend to bully the lesser experienced person into doing things, and then fearful traumatic experiences happen for both the horse and the human, and often dangerous things occur, and then this creates, all kinds of other ongoing issues that the rider has to mentally deal with and try and recover from, and it can just be a big wreck. So without support, without guidance, that novice horse, novice rider can get you into a lot of trouble. Help, my horse only has one speed. Another big one. And this doesn't mean that the horse is galloping full speed ahead, but often horses will be taking their riders, as opposed to the rider feeling like they're in the driver's seat, influencing what's about to happen. Again, it's not an issue of speed. And just so you know, bits are not the fix. Martingales are not the fix. Tie downs are not the fix if your horse is moving too fast. Your horse's body is moving too fast. That means his brain has left and his body's trying to catch up to his brain. So again, we got to go back to that root cause rather than trying to address the symptom, which is his movement is too fast. Let's see. How do I improve my horse's jumping and balance? This is another one. Jumping is not about getting over obstacles. Jumping is the quality of flat work, and there happens to be obstacles in the way. Help. How do I improve the halt? Help. I can't get my horse to halt. Help. I have mounting issues. My horse always moves just that one step away. Again, this is coming back to it is not about the task of mounting, but the preparation that led into it and the quality of the conversation, so that when you happen to get on your horse, it doesn't feel like it's containment. It doesn't feel like you have to hold him in place, and it doesn't feel like there's a time limit that you only have 5 seconds to hurry up and get on. Otherwise, he's leaving with or without you. Why won't my horse let me mount? Again, there's only so many reasonable ways that your horse can tell you that he's having a problem. And unfortunately, when it's soft and it's reasonable in his resistance in trying to show you that he has some concern, humans tend to ignore it and bully the horse into it, and maybe you'll get through a time or two. But what you'll start to find is that each time his resistance will become stronger, it will last longer, and next thing you know, all of a sudden, your horse won't let you do X, Y, and Z. It's not all of a sudden. Let's see, overreaching at the lope. So overreaching is when the hind feet wind up interfering with the front feet. This happens to be at the lope or canter if you're riding English. This happens a lot. This is incorrect body movement and, incorrect riding that often influences this. People kind of have this assumption that the horse will naturally know how to ride or move balanced and carrying a rider's weight and moving on a circle and all these other like foreign and unnatural things that we ask of them. If you're seeing a deterioration in the quality of the movements at the faster pace, we've missed something at the slower paces, because if we can't get quality at the slower paces with softness and balance, then it's only going to deteriorate the faster we go. Relaxing at the pole. So why is my horse's head straight up in the air? Again, this is another one. No, the bit will not fix this. Just because your horse physically lowered his head does not mean that there is softness. This is a big one. Everybody wants their horse to break at the pole, but when you look at the rest of the horse, there's rigidity, there's defensiveness, there's tightness. It's not about the physical act of your horse dropping his head. Let's see. Runaway horse, show sour horse. How do I slow my horse down at the lope? How do I get my horse to stop after we've loped? Can a thoroughbred be a trail riding horse? How come on the trail ride my horse doesn't listen? How come on the trail ride my horse only wants to move in the middle of the herd? Help, at a certain point on riding the same trail, my horse refuses to go forward any further. This is another big one. Again, there's only so many ways the horse can start to show you some concern or defensiveness, and if you don't believe it, you're going to have issues. Walking. I can't get my horse to walk on the trail. So that's kind of some of the riding issues. Let's go on to tack and equipment. This is always a fun one. Bits. How do I get my horse to go from using a bit to bitless? It is not a magic act. So again, going back to your groundwork and addressing how your horse feels about physical pressure. If on the ground your leading is not quality, you cannot direct his brain or his body with a softness, with intention. If you are unable to influence what's about to happen, then you've missed a big piece, and it has nothing to do with whether you use a bit or a bitless bridle or any other type of head stall. Help, my horse is always fighting the bit. Help, my horse is grinding his teeth when I put the bit in. How come my horse is overreactive to the bit? How do I use spurs, and what is the correct usage? So let's take a time out for a minute. How many of you have ever seen a fly land on your horse's skin? If you have, does it twitch? If the answer is yes, then we need to go back and say, why is it that we are using spurs, and are we offering quality aids before we add stronger equipment? And the answer, I'll give you a sneak peek, 99% of you who are using spurs are not riding correctly. And we're just going to stop right there, and people will get upset, and people will come up with justifications and explanations. Can you use stronger equipment at some point? Perhaps, but most people want to skip and rush through learning how to become a quality and effective rider, so that you are very clear in how you're using your body, when you're using your body to communicate the specificity of your aids, the intention of your aids, and offering a release from your aids. And if you don't understand those pieces, then adding stronger equipment, such as spurs, isn't going to make anything better. Let's see, how do I use a surcingle? What is the purpose of a surcingle? How do I hang a harness, a driving harness? This was a fun one. Let's go on to stable management. How do I add horses to a new herd? How do I sell a horse? Help, I bought the wrong horse. What should I do now? I'm going to try out a horse. What are things I should be asking? This is a big one. If there was anything that anybody ever learned, it should come back from the place of learning all of these questions and learning from what is not being said by the seller, learning how to change the horse's environment. I always say when I go to buy a horse or shop for clients, I want to see that horse at its worst rather than its best, especially depending on what it is that we're going to be using for the horse for in the future time. Trailer loading. This is another really big one. So help, my horse won't load. Help, when I unload my horse, he rushes out of the trailer. Help, my horse will load, but he won't stay in the trailer when I go to close the gate. Help, my horse will only load into one spot in the particular trailer, and the list goes on. So anyways, if any of those have struck your attention and you can relate to perhaps some of those, you have questions about some of those, be sure to tune back in. Each Friday, I'm going to pick one of these and just give a little rundown on the topic, because I think a lot of people out there have a lot of questions that aren't being answered in a very straightforward and direct manner in addressing the root cause, and most answers out there are just trying to mask the symptom, and that just isn't working. So join me, Alternative Horsemanship with Samantha Harvey.